broke the law when they offered the insider of their customers to own stock before they're going to go public in a few months at double the valuation they paid for it just last fall. And the New York Times ran a story saying, well, the Congress is going to pass a new law to cover up for the fact that Goldman Sachs broke the law.
Oh, yeah, states are passing laws and attorney generals are ruling. You thought they'd get in trouble for the mirror system and the robo-signing. They're just passing laws saying it's okay. And I've seen cases where they're now saying, yes, Bank of America can take your house, even if your house is totally paid for, and they never owned it. Okay, I mean, these banks are being set up like King George, where if he wants to have sex with your wife, you have to let him. You know, British royalty actually had that. That prima noctu was real. And, I mean, it's literally like they are God, we are scum.
Well, that just happened recently. You know, the Dominic Strauss-Kahn case. In France, there's an old law in the books that the aristocrat has the right to have sex with the help. And so Dominic Strauss-Kahn, of course, is a bona fide aristocrat, and he was trying to claim initially that it's in his legal right to have sex with any help of any of the people cleaning his toilets that he wants to. It's within his right. There's even a word for it in French, a verb for this, and it's a well-established law. But these are the people, they want to bring back the feudalism. They want to bring back the good old Middle Ages, where kings were kings and everyone else, you know, got to slop pigs all day long. And they never liked the fact that after the Black Plague, a few people were actually able to negotiate for a middle-class income. That's what started the middle class to begin with, because lords were actually going to pay people to work their land because the Black Plague had wiped out half the population. That was the beginning of the middle class. But the aristocrats never liked that. They want to go back now. They were like, you know what? We want to go back to just giving you no money. We want to have you as slaves. You know, the cost of a slave in America, it used to be $40,000 back 150 years ago during the plantation days. Now it's $90. For $90, you can put some poor schlub in jail and get him working as a slave. It costs virtually nothing. Slavery is legal in America.
Max, I mean, how far is it going to go? I mean, Nero started running around dressed as a werewolf, killing people in public. Caligula, you know, after him started running around wearing his horse and making it the head of the Senate and wallowing in its droppings. I mean, are we just going to get to that point where like mega bankers dance around with crowns going, like shooting kids at parks with SWAT teams running behind them, you know, fanning them with palm fronds? I mean, will it get to that point?
I think now the difference is you have computers and drones. So computers, they program to steal money. So 70–80% of all the trading on Wall Street is done by computers, and the programs.
Yeah, what do you call that? Because they talk about how they diversify the risk and culpability to where no one can say who did it, and so it's just all these mixtures of denial. And now they're going to have the drones killing on their own. So we don't. No one's drone did it. Oh.
That's exactly right. So they have drones are now okay for the U.S., something you predicted 2 years ago. That's now true. And computer trading is 70–80% of the volume on the Wall Street, and it's all programmed algorithmically. And I know because I've designed programs, as you introduced me to the show, I've designed virtual trading programs, how to set up a computer to go in there and, you know, basically steal money. That's the unfortunate use of my technology. I originally designed it to have a fair market, but then in the hands of Cantor Fitzgerald, a Wall Street terrorist firm, if they've used it to bankrupt people, they've used it to steal money. You know, this is an ongoing debate I have with Cantor Fitzgerald. They acquired my technology on false pretenses. They never paid me for the technology. They never paid any of the shareholders. You know, the shareholders spent $40 million developing that technology, and Cantor Fitzgerald has yet to pay any of them a penny. They claim that they lost the paperwork in a 9/11 accident. That's like, oh, the dog lost my homework. Well, it's been 10 years.
No, the dog ate conspiracy theory. These people have never engaged in any corruption. The dog ate the homework.
They owe me personally at least $2 million, Cantor Fitzgerald, but they refuse to pay me because they claim, oh, they got hit on 9/11. You freaking crybaby, pay up.
Now, come on. Gerald Celente deserves to have his money taken as well.
Did you know nuclear radiation is still...
Got a lot of key information coming up tonight, 7 o'clock Central at InfoWarsNews.com or PrisonPlanet.tv. We're out of time. I wanted to go into overdrive, and take your calls. I did get to a lot of them, but if the folks that are on hold right now call back tomorrow, I'll go to you first. If you tell John Harmon that when you call in. We don't screen your calls, but you can volunteer that and go to the other line. I would do an extra hour or so here today. I do it at 4th hour sometimes, but I've got History Channel out there to interview me for 5 episodes of a show. And then I've got another film crew coming after that. That is booking right there. Booking me 2 interviews back to back. I like that. That will be particularly grueling. But that's why Aaron Dykes is doing the nightly news tonight. Okay, let's go ahead and go back to Max Kaiser. Max, we sit here and people think we're being satirical. This is not a joke. And they're announced, I mean, again, because the mainline media is complicit and says, aren't we lucky Goldman Sachs is getting rid of all freedom in Europe and transferring national sovereignty directly to the banking system? Thank goodness. The Economist is saying it. And they really think they're going to get away with this. But it's not like 10 years ago when nobody knew that the Federal Reserve was private or the ECB had private shareholders behind it. They're not going to get away with this long run, Max, even if they bring in an authoritarian system.
Look, I don't know why people would think that I'm being satirical. I mean, just look at China, for example. Very recently, they caught one of their bankers engaged in a fraud and a Ponzi scheme, and the government executed the banker. Now, that's what I call a deterrent. And they've done it twice now. So, and this is why Chinese banks are trusted. This is why people are moving their money out of American banks into Chinese banks, because the government's willing to execute the guys like Hank Paulson or Tim Geithner. Now, there's nothing satirical about that. That's the cold, hard facts. If John Corzine in China, he would have his head chopped off already. And that's what I like about the Chinese banking system. They have real deterrence.
Well, I know that when they put a bunch of melamine in the formula and a bunch of kids got sick, they executed a bunch of people. But here, the FDA came out and said melamine is now not bad for you.
No, look at the banking situation. They just executed 2 corrupt bankers. Okay, you can do a search on that. I don't have it handy, but you can do a search on it. And that's what they do to corrupt bankers. Now, think about it in America. John Corzine. You got J.P. Morgan's caught in 3 massive frauds in the last 18 months. They paid a little fine, but caught into 3 massive frauds. They got a Judge Rakoff now in the U.S. who's saying that, wait a minute, we have to revisit these cases because we just can't let the business model of fraud be the operating business model of Wall Street. We have to actually go back and look at these cases. But if they go back and look at these cases, as they would in some of these other territories and countries, they find massive fraud at the top. And the deterrent has to be something that will stop people from committing these massive frauds. So Corzine, Jamie Dimon, Lloyd Blankfein, those are 3 names right there that if using Chinese banking standards would have been executed by now, and I applaud that wholeheartedly. That's not a satirical statement.
No, I understand. People think reality's a joke, but as the immortal Jimi Hendrix said, there's some out there that think life is but a joke, but thank God we're not among them. But then, by the way, these are the people piloting the whole global agenda of the New World Order. It is the mega banks. They're the top of the pyramid.
Look, there's a line down the street in Chinatown in New York City every single day. People are rushing to put their money into the Chinese banking system because they know it's a sound banking system. They know that they are not leveraging those banks 100 to 1. So in the U.S., not content with leveraging their own banks 50 to 100 to 1, they've engaged now in these foreign currency liquidity swaps to bring that leveraging to the European banks.
So in 10 seconds, what's going to happen in Europe next? Max Kaiser, final word.
It's the United Europe of Goldman Sachs.
Hold on, overdrive. All right, finishing up with Max Kaiser. Here's some of the other crazy news. I didn't get into the fact that, oh my gosh, almost 70% of U.S. foster kids are on psychotropic drugs for no reason. The government's not doing a good job. The government orders the policy. We're going to cover that tonight with the Proof Nightly News. Kane is saying it ain't over till it's over, and it ain't over. We've got, don't worry, Newt Gingrich and the Donald. Talk about 2 slimy creatures together. They're to meet and decide, I guess, how to make sure Obama gets back into office. It's incredible. Hey, Max, finish up that question. I appreciate you joining us. So what's next in Europe? Just more grandstanding? Thank gosh the IMF's here robbing everybody. are Europeans going to put up with the public announcements of, you now have no sovereignty? We're raising all these new taxes to pay for banker debt. Armed EU banker police will come into your restaurant and collect it by force. I mean, there's now a new banker KGB in Europe. You're descending into a new Soviet Union.
Well, in Europe, you already have an incredibly big bureaucracy in place that will do the bidding of the top bureaucrats, or quote-unquote technocrats, and who are living as civil servants, as they're called in the UK. And these are millions and millions of people who live as civil servants, as bureaucrats for 30 or 40 years, and then retire with almost 100% of their pay. And they'll do pretty much anything you tell them to do. So if Goldman Sachs comes into town and says, we're running the show, but your job as a paper pusher for 40,000 euros a year is intact, they won't say a peep.
In fact, they won't say a peep. They'll say, will you please present your rumpus? We'd like to kiss it.
Right. I mean, in Europe, you don't have, in the U.S., the residue of the spirit of 1776 so much. I mean, obviously in France with the revolution, but, in France, you still have an economy and a country that has the old aristocracy very much in place. In America, the aristocracy was imported from Britain. You didn't have a natural indigenous aristocracy as you do in Europe. And so,
but regardless, they're getting ready to rob things here. Look at MF Global. And in closing, what do you make of them set today to pass a bill where they admit, yes, we'll arrest citizens with no charge. No one will ever be arrested. You disappear for life. That's freedom. I mean, they are letting everybody know, yes, we are criminals.
Yeah, I mean, it's overreach. Again, going back to pre-Magna Carta, all the rules that came from the Constitution and everything that came out of the Enlightenment. It's pre-Enlightenment because the aristocracy want to go back to the days of divine rights of technocrats.
It's Dark Ages. I mean, it's real simple. They're going back to the Dark Ages.
They did great in the Dark Ages. They were the kings and everyone else was their serf. They love that. That's what they want to go back to. And they have computers doing all the heavy lifting, and they just set up a drone to do all the killing. So it's even more decadent than even the most decadent of the middle-aged kings, because they don't even have to raise an army anymore. Just push a button, and we'll just steal the money electronically and send a drone out to go do our bidding for us electronically.
And the public's under mind control, drinking liquor and flopping around on Prozac, watching football on TV. And so even though they're getting poorer and falling apart, they just have no idea. They're like, I mean, it's going to be pretty nasty.
Well, I think that the public is just the people that are being abused by this. We don't hear from them because they're living under a bridge somewhere or in their car. They're off the grid. There are millions of people in the U.S. now that are basically off the grid.
50 million on food stamps. It's all going down. Max Kaiser, thanks for joining us. Look forward to talking to you again in the near future.
Thanks, Alex.
There he goes. That was another happy show. Oh, man, I want to go live out in the jungle and be left alone, but I can't. A bunch of hippies in there waiting with little sharp fangs. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm out of time. Tonight, 7 o'clock, InfoWars Nightly News. It's going to be power-packed. We'll be back tomorrow, too, here on the...
Initially, that it's in his legal right to have sex with any of the people cleaning his toilets that he wants to. It's within his right. There's even a word for it in French, a verb for this, and it's a well-established law. But these are the people, they want to bring back the feudalism. They want to bring back the good old Middle Ages, where kings were kings and everyone else, got this.
It was real. And, I mean, it's literally like, they are God, we are scum.
Well, that just happened recently. The Dominic Strauss-Kahn case in France. There's an old law in the books that the aristocrat has the right to have sex with the help, and so Dominic Strauss-Kahn, of course, is a bona fide aristocrat, and he was trying to claim slop pigs all day long, and they never liked the fact that after the Black Plague, a few people were actually able to negotiate for a middle-class income. That's what started the middle class to begin with, because lords were actually going to pay people to work their land because the black plague had wiped out half the population. That was the beginning of the middle class. But the aristocrats never liked that.
You thought they'd get in trouble for the mirror system and the robo-signing. They're just passing laws saying it's okay. And I've seen cases where they're now saying, yes, Bank of America can take your house, even if your house is totally paid for, and they never owned it. Okay, I mean, these banks are being set up like King George, where if he wants to have sex with your wife, you have to let him. You know, British royalty actually had that. That Prima Noctu.
They broke the law when they offered the insider of their customers to own stock before they're going to go public in a few months at double the valuation they paid for it just last fall. And the New York Times ran a story saying, well, the Congress is going to pass a new law to cover up for the fact that Goldman Sachs broke the law.
Oh, yeah, states are passing laws, and attorney generals are ruling